In the latest financial report released by Falcom in preparation for the shareholder meeting on December the 15th, it was confirmed that a new mainline East title will be releasing in September 2023, and that is likely to be East 10, as we already know that this has been in development for the past couple of years. Now this was surprising news, as just last month many were thinking that East 10 was going to be delayed another year. For reference, Falcom have released 3 Trails games over the last 3 years, those being Hajimari no Kiseki, Kuro no Kiseki, and Kuro no Kiseki 2 Crimson Sin. And as part of the promotion of Crimson Sin, especially leading up to its release and after its release, Kondo was doing a lot of interviews, as he generally does. And in those interviews he was stating that Falcom were planning to release East 10 this year as part of the 35th anniversary of the series, but because of development trouble they had to push it back, and in an interview with 4Gamer just last month he stated that they were still having development issues, which led many to believe that East 10 was going to be pushed back another year. But according to this financial report, it looks like development is actually going okay, and they're going to be releasing a new mainline title, not confirmed as East 10 but very likely to be East 10, and that's going to be releasing in September of 2023. But of course we're going to see confirmation of that come the shareholder meeting on December the 15th. Now the question to ask first of all is, why has development taken such a seemingly long amount of time to go from East 9 Monstrum Nox to seemingly East 10? For reference, East 8 released in 2016, while East 9 Monstrum Nox released in 2019, so a 3-year gap. But the thing to remember about East 8 and East 9 is that they are mostly similar in many respects. They have similar gameplay, the same engine, and really the only things that Falcom needed to do were to create the new assets, like the city of Bolduc, and maybe add a few new mechanics to spice up what was in East 8. This new title though, and I'm just going to call it East 10 from now on even though it's not confirmed, is not going to be like that. It's actually a soft reboot to the series, akin to what Ark of Napishtim was, and akin to what East 7 was. Ark of Napishtim was of course the onset of the Napishtim engine games, which gave us Ofen-Felgana and East Origin following Ark of Napishtim, and East 7 was the birth of the party-based gameplay, which we still have even today. We had it with East 7, Memories of Celceta, East 8, and indeed East 9. East 10 now is going to be evolving the series even further. It's going to be the blueprints for how the series is going to progress for the say the next 2 to 3 games. And that's one aspect that Falcom are dealing with. In terms of that concept art when it was first shown to us back in June, Kondo pretty much confirmed that the team-based gameplay is going to remain, but it's just going to change. There's going to be certain elements there which are going to be borrowing from like Souls-like games and all this kind of stuff. There's going to be more of an emphasis on 1v1 combat, and it's interesting to hear what kind of direction they're going down with this, because honestly I don't know if they're going to meld the Napishtim engine and East 7 models together into one and then go from there. Who knows? I mean, like, at the moment we don't know too much about what this gameplay is going to entail, only that it is going to be different going forward. So again, new gameplay style, that's one thing they have to incorporate. Another thing though is that East 10 is going to incorporate the new engine. This new in-house engine has been used partly for Trails into Reverie or Hajimari no Kiseki, and it was used fully for Kuro no Kiseki and Kuro no Kiseki 2 Crimson Sin. Now, even though Falcom have gained more experience with this in-house engine, actually applying what they know in a Trails game and taking that and moving it over to an East game is not as easy as it sounds. Of course, at the end of the day, even with its hybrid system which it introduced in Kuro no Kiseki, East games are just a lot faster than Trails games. They're full-on action RPGs as opposed to the turn-based style of Trails. So applying that to a new engine is going to be interesting. Of course, they've taken this engine as they felt it would give them a lot more options going forward, but they still need to figure out what it's capable of and what they're capable of. And of course, applying it to a new East game, which is basically going to be changing the mold of it going forward, that's another challenge they have to contend with. And of course, like it was with Monstrum Nox, they also need to build assets from the ground up using this new engine. You're likely looking at a new land, new characters, so all these models need to be built from zero. You know, you can't really take anything, cut and paste it from say a Trails game and then put it back into a sequel or anything like that. That's not really how it works in these titles. They're having to start from zero. So combine all of those factors together, it's no wonder that East 10 has taken quite a long time to develop. Now, in terms of where East 10 falls in the timeline, the simple answer here is that, well, we don't really know. All we have at the moment is this concept art from back in June, and also Kondo's word on the trajectory of the East series, what they're going to be doing with it going forward. But people have looked at this concept art and they've noticed that Adol looks quite young, so take with that what you will, and based on this it's reasonable to deduce that this is one of his earlier adventures. But is it after Memories of Celceta? Is it immediately after East 1 and 2? Who knows? You know, this is something that I imagine lore heads are going to be looking into. We're going to get a lot more information on this as well, especially after the shareholder meeting, assuming that it is East 10. There's not much more we can say about it, canonically at least. But in terms of what we should be excited for with a new mainline East title, well, for East fans, obviously, it's a new East game. Obviously, you're waiting 4 years. They've had to be quite patient to get this game. Obviously, it's been in development for the past couple of years, but again, Trails was just taking the mantle again and again and again. Trails was coming out consecutively, so the East fans are getting a little bit of good eating, to say the least, so I think they deserve that in that regard. For Trails fans though, it's also good news arguably, because it represents one more year that we have to catch up with the gap that we have on the Western releases. Trails into Reverie is going to be releasing in summer 2023, Nayata Boundless Trails is for winter 2023, and then after that it's a case of doing Kuro no Kiseki and Crimson Sin. So having that extra year is going to help, but then you would assume that this mainline East title will also be taken on by NIS America when it actually comes to a Western release. And East games don't really have a focus on story. They're still good stories, but they're not as intricate as Trails games are. So there's less text, and thus you would think the turnaround time is a bit quicker, so maybe that might work in our favour as well on the Trails side. But the main thing I'm personally excited for are the implications of the East series going forward. What this soft reboot means for the series as it pushes on. And even though what I'm thinking here isn't substantiated in any way at the moment, I feel that it does follow a notable pattern. When the Napishtim Engine games first came out, East 6 was the testing ground, and it was immediately followed by a canonical remake of East 3 Wanderers from East into Oath Felgana. When the party-based gameplay came out, East 7 was the testing ground, and it was immediately followed by a canonical remake of East 4 in Memories of Celceta. So if the pattern is to maintain itself going forward, if East 10 is going to be the testing ground for this new gameplay style, does that mean we're going to get a remake of an older East title, like say East 5? Now, a remake of East 5 in the future, I feel that this is the logical choice. It's the one blot that exists on the East series in the present day. Most of the East games are easily accessible to Western fans. East 5 is arguably the only one that isn't easily available to many players. Many have to use a fan translation, and of course there are all those different ports that you can look at as well, either on the Famicom or on the PS2 if you want to go with the FMV cutscenes. But I feel that East 5 has a tarnished legacy. It's something that I feel that Falcom have been kind of pushing under the rug for a very long time. Well, at the end of the day, East 5 nearly destroyed the series completely. It nearly ended it. It caused a 10-year hiatus, and then when the Napishtim came out, it basically revived it, and here we are today. But I think that East 5 represents unfinished business for Falcom, and again, like I say, if that pattern is to hold and we do get a remake of East 5, I feel like that is just going to be the thing that brings it full circle, so to speak, because even though it was divisive among fans, even though many felt that it didn't have the same identity as the previous East games and that it was too easy, the music wasn't as good, it was still an okay game. It was just generic. It fell into the quagmire of other run-of-the-mill JRPGs or RPGs of the time, and it just fell short against the more heavy hitters like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana. I would be very surprised if East 5 doesn't get something in the next, say, 5 years or so, because it is the only real blot on the series, as I've said before. It's the only point that people still question. They wonder, why has East 5 never been released in the West? What's been going on? All the struggles that came with it. I feel that with the new gameplay style, with the new engine, this is the time for Falcom to wipe the slate clean, get a new one out there, revive the legacy, of East 5. We will have to see. It's all speculation at the moment. I'm just going off what's arguably I hope would happen in the future. But I dare say that Falcom have their own plans for the East series, and whatever they do, I will still support them. So yeah, there we go guys. Another East game on the way. We'll probably see about this next month as well in the shareholder meeting, but keep an eye out for it. And yeah, here's hoping it's a good one.